Welcome to the True Colours podcast, where we share our views on life, relationships, and culture, exploring big questions and providing simple answers to them, with your hosts, Jay Claire and Sally Olver.
Yes, that's one.
Welcome to the True Colours podcast. Hello, Sally.
Hey, Jason. How are you?
I'm very well. Out of 10, how would you rank your technology skills?
I would say somewhere in the vicinity of minus gazillion.
It took us about 50, I think we were supposed to start at 9 o'clock.
Come on, man.
Alistair here was having a little bit of problem with the technology on the other side.
Hey.
It was, she doesn't know, but I was recording her struggles, so.
Don't you dare upload that. Oh,
No,
I'll be shunned. There was some profanities, listeners. Let's just say that. I was furious. I've had a week.
When you get rich and famous, I'm going to do the bribery. I'm like, hey, remember that time when you lost it over the webcam?
Would you do that to me?
No way.
Do you seriously go, I have this collateral.
You give me those millions already anyway, so, you know. Do you remember?
I'll hook you up, mate.
We haven't even talked about our topic yet, but do you remember at my birthday this year when we had that in-depth debate? It was late in the night and everyone was pretty, well into their night. And
happy?
Happy, having a good time. It's a 40th, you have a...
Yeah, it was a great night. It was a really good night. Fantastic, yeah.
And we were talking about, I think the number was, if you won Tats Lotto...
Oh, yeah!
And you won $5 million, and you'd be like, you'd give $1 million to Dave, wouldn't you? And I'm like, no.
Oh, yes! Oh, this is a good topic. I can't believe, I don't get that. How could you have...
It's $1 million out of 5. That's like 20% of it.
Yeah, and we're like, yesterday you had not nothing, but you didn't have 5 million, and now you've got 5 million. Would you not share that love?
I'd share it. I'd give him like 250 grand, and then if you need more, then I'll give him a bit more, like that. You can't just give it all in one go.
You wouldn't just give him a lumper.
Nah, Dave's bad with money, so.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, what if he wasn't bad with money? What if he was responsible? Then would you give him $1 million? Has that tweaked the conversation?
I think my line is 10%. 10%.
10?
For a sibling, 10%.
Savage, man.
You reckon?
Yes.
How much to parents? How much would you give your parents?
I would give my parents heaps, and I would give them heaps.
Is not a number.
And they wouldn't even take it. Mauritians, they'd be like, no.
I've lived my life.
Yeah, no. Can you imagine Mauritian parents going, I'll take $1 million? No, they won't take it.
I reckon the funniest thing ever, I honestly believe, it'd make a great movie topic, but if my dad won $50 million, I don't know what would happen. That would be so good.
What do you think
Dad,
would
you got
happen?
$50 million. I'm happy on the couch. You're like, what?
Yeah, the dude's got life figured out, man. No judgment. Absolutely. I'd be on the couch too. Getting a technician to hook up my webcam so I can talk to you in efficient timing.
$5 million, yeah, 10% for a sibling. I think that's a fair number.
10%?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I've got kids.
Yeah.
I've got a wife.
Yeah.
I've got parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
You start slicing up that pizza, there ain't much to go around.
I know. Yeah, but my argument is Yesterday you didn't have the pizza.
Who's
Right?
to say that stuff that I buy, he won't get enjoyment out of as well?
Well, this is true. This is true. But that wasn't the discussion. The
If
discussion
I buy,
was, what
I
is
bought
the
a boat,
figure?
if I bought a boat and we went our weekend, do you think he's coming? Of course he's coming.
I'm telling you, if I had the choice between $1 million and a ride on a boat on a Saturday, I know what I'd be choosing. It wouldn't be the boat.
He's getting 500 grand.
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
And a ride on a boat.
500 grand and a boat ride.
Dave, I'm going to give you 500 grand and a boat ride. What do you reckon?
Look, let's face it, it's better than a kick in the eye, right? He's not doing badly. Yeah.
I feel bad nowadays when I'm like, $5 million, not really that much money.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, do you know what? It is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money and not a lot of money.
But
It's not lifetime money.
I'll give you an example, right? So crashed my car.
Oh.
Crashed the Kluger. Another story for another day. But so yeah, so had to go and get it fixed. Went to the panel beaters this morning, and so I'll be driving Matt's car around. He's going to take public transport, which is easier for him, right? So I can do the school run. Mm-hmm. And the panel beaters said, it's probably going to take between a week or two. And the kids are like, what? Oh my God. And they just start spitting chips, right? And I'm like, back.
So getting a lift.
I'm like, first world problems, people. You're complaining because this family has gone down from 2 cars to 1. Some families don't even have 1.
I gotta
Can you believe that? Now. Like, I have to say there was a little bit of mother shame there for a minute. I was like, oh my gosh, I've really got to double down on these kind of life lessons with my kids, because they were just so inconvenienced by it that they had to go in the RAV, not the Kluger.
Oh, that dirty RAV.
It's a car. It moves.
We've got this whole big plan that we're working on at the moment, and then part of that is we need to get like a bigger car, and so we're looking at cars and stuff.
Bigger than the Kluger.
No, not big enough.
How many kids are you having?
Just the 2.
So what do you need so much space for?
I need to pull a caravan around.
Oh.
Yeah, so the thing is, right, and he's like, if we find the right car, we should just buy it now. And I'm like, that means we'd have 4 cars at the same time.
4 cars. Isn't that terrible?
Because we got 2 cars that are paid off. We got 2 cars that are paid off.
Yeah,
and then we've got the car that I bought earlier this year that I don't need and I'm trying to sell and I can't sell it.
Oh, you're kidding. You can't move it.
Yeah, this is what happens when you buy a car that you don't really need, and there's not much of a market for it because it's pretty niche.
Wow.
I just got to figure it out. Yes, it is.
You will, man. You'll figure it out. You always figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. So what are we talking about today?
we are. Well, you've got the question.
I've got the question.
I think there's something that's sort of eating at you lately that you want to discuss, right?
Eating at me?
I don't know if it's eating at you. That's a bit severe.
Yeah. Maybe it's
you have a curiosity around the following topic.
I think this topic is a topic which is a good way to lead into something else. So the question specifically is, I think this came up, I think even before we started the podcast actually, going live. This is one of the topics, and I was like, what are we going to talk about this week? And I looked back and I was like, oh yeah, this is something I actually really wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's one about religion and belief. or maybe more belief than religion, because I don't think religion has anything to do with it. But why do non-believers care so much about believers, and likewise the other way? So when you talk about believers in this sense, I imagine someone with a belief in a higher being, whereas non-believers, ultimately, they believe in evolution and the Big Bang Theory. I think we kind of slightly touched on it last week. But it leads into this whole idea that in many worlds or many topics, there is a spectrum of thought.
A continuum.
Yeah. And each side has a polar end of the most, extreme.
The two extremes.
Yeah, the extreme. Yeah, and then you have something that sort of shrinks in somewhere and it gets into the middle. And I think I'm closer. I'm right in that middle mark right nowadays. With me. So, so in regards
and does that feel comfortable for you? Is that a comfortable space for you?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, good.
It's very comfortable. So because I got to a stage where I'm like, I feel like I
don't care. So just
no,
in the middle.
but I'll stop talking in 2 seconds. But like the revelation I had probably like about, I don't know, I think throughout my life I've had many different changes in thoughts, and I'm very, I would say, pragmatic in the way that I go about things. And like if someone's been giving me enough evidence about something, I kind of like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, that makes sense, and I think about it a little bit more. And sometimes my perspective on something can become very narrow though. So that's something that I've figured out in my life, that becoming an ideologue or a bit of a know-all about something and being lopsided to that side can sometimes become quite grating. I think is the word.
Grating,
like it's like
grating to who?
To other people who have the opposite opinion.
And that's a problem. Why?
Well, a grating in a way where it becomes what I should add is people with these opposite opinions or views basically dismiss this other person totally just because they have that certain view.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think it's come. So in this point of view where we're looking at believers, ultimately you're a believer, I am a non-believer, but my actual position on it, which I think is similar to yours.
We believe in each other.
I believe I can fly.
Thank you, R. Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's not talk about that guy.
No.
So I think ultimately, whilst we share the opposite view in the actual in the perspective of a worldview, I think we're pretty much both in the middle.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, I respect your point of view. I'm happy to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Cool, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. Sweet. And people talk and share ideas.
Yes.
I think that's what
I love that. I love when two people can get into a room or more and share ideas and have the respect for someone else's, because I think when you are grounded in your own perspective, belief, both, whatever, right? You're grounded in your view. I think you can sit in a room and listen to other perspectives without becoming aggressive, defensive, offended. Because that's a place where I've come to, where I'm just like, I know what I believe, and I'm actually not interested if I can sit in a room and listen to a reason why someone might be an atheist or why they believe in evolution, or all of those other opposing views. But that's not gonna rock my view, because I think it's when the conversation becomes aggressive and disrespectful
mm,
is when there's
mm,
a problem.
mm.
You know what I mean?
Ultimately, there's also a place where I've come to as well is, like, for example, in this discussion, this is how nuanced in thought I believe it can become now. And it's what I think is like, I'm in the middle. There are people who are believers. I respect that what they believe, and if it's something that we accept as a society, that someone can live their life by their religious beliefs, that's fine. As long as it's not impacting on anyone else, as long as they don't have to change, as long as they don't have to change their ways for others, then that's fine. Like, if they're not changing anything, that's fine. On the other side, you've got the I guess the theory of evolution and the Big Bang and stuff like that. But I'm also here where I'm like, that's so out of my realm of understanding.
Evolution.
The evolution and the science and how they actually figure it out, that it's hard for me to even say that's real as well. But
that's interesting. That is really interesting. Yeah, good.
Which is to me is like,
that's a very humble confession.
Yeah, well, ultimately I don't get it, and I'm never going to be able to. The logic of, like, I think I explained to you last time, is like the logic that someone used mathematical equations to figure out backwards how the world started through numbers, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It does not even compute in my brain how that can even happen. And that's pretty much why I'm there. So if I can't physically understand it, it's something that's out of my realm of understanding. So I am who I am, and whatever anyone else believes is what they believe.
I tell you what, this is something that I'm loving about this age. This is probably the one thing that I like about technology. Is it's really, if it's used properly, it's really expanding thought. So people that are just like, no, it's this, are now coming to they're asking questions and going, okay, that's what we've been fed for all this time. I'm going to need to know a little bit more about it. And it's no better time than ever to just be your own little private investigator and go out and find out for yourself. My kids do it. Things like they said to me today, please don't judge me, but they said to me, they were talking about billions of dollars and trillions of dollars. And I go, Mum, how many zeros is a trillion? And I'm like,
Is it 12? What is it?
Yeah, right. I think it's 12. And I was like, well, why don't you find out? There's my phone. Google it, find out now. You know what I mean? So all this sort of knowledge and stuff is at their fingertips, and that's at a elementary level. But what we're talking about, we have the convenience now to go, okay, that's a theory, that's what we've been fed. I actually want to investigate this a little bit more and see if it's something I really do believe. If there's enough evidence to quantify that theory. Sometimes there's not. But we just go, oh, okay, that's the topic that's been given a lot of buzz, therefore it must be right.
Yeah, I find that this
and it's no one's fault. Like, it's no one's fault. Because
I heard this great saying today, and this is why I'm kind of starting to think about this. I'm like, if I don't understand it, it's a bit hard for me to form an opinion about it. So
really,
how can I?
That's awesome.
How can I do that?
Awesome.
So what was the saying I had to say? If someone is extremely certain about something, extremely certain about an extremely complex thing, you should be dubious of that thought.
Right. Okay.
So like people who are like, I'm a super greenie or something like that, and I'm like, climate change, and they just spout off all the buzzwords. But if you actually ask them questions like, are greenhouses a good or bad thing? And they're like, oh, bad, or something like that. But they won't even know. So my point is a lot of people have these formed opinions based on other people's thoughts.
Of course.
Rather
who are very convincing.
Yeah, and I think there's this whole idea is people like right now are talk about, and climate change. That again is another example of the spectrum, right, of belief. Humans are doing all this damage to the world, and we're doing all this thing. The world is going to burn down because of what humans are doing. And then there are people on the other side who's like, nah, it's a hoax. Right? No, it's a hoax.
Well, I just want to say right now, we don't treat our planet well. Wherever that sits on that continuum, we don't treat our planet well. Let's just put that out there right now. We don't.
In what way?
Sorry, segue. Sorry, I derailed.
In what way?
Continue.
In what? No, in what way?
We've had this discussion before. Consumption, overconsumption.
Overconsumption.
The end. Yeah. Overproduction, overconsumption. We buy too much, and as long as we're buying, it's going to get manufactured. Then it gets just chucked out and just lazy. Oh, I'll just grab a bottle of water that will never biodegrade when I could just bring like a cup or something and fill it up. Just stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree.
There is damage to the planet. There's no doubt there's damage to the planet.
There is damage to the planet? In what way?
Overconsumption.
No, but what is the damage?
I say landfill.
Okay.
All right. Let's just say landfill.
Yeah.
There is too much of it because we overconsume. There's that, right? Then there's all the pollution and stuff that's going into the atmosphere because we're manufacturing. This is my real baseline understanding, but to me that's pretty straightforward. You can't really deny that those two things are happening. They're happening.
Yeah, well, I can tell you for a fact that like in most Western countries, the air quality has actually gotten better over the last 40 years.
Okay, so we're paying attention.
So yeah. So like
that's good.
There's things
that's
like
good.
there's examples of, so for example, with your car prior, I can't remember what year it was, but one of the greatest inventions of all time, it's never talked about, is the catalytic converter on a car. So what that does is they added a thing to the exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
And basically that exhaust pipe is a methodology of cleaning the pollutants out of the exhaust that's leaving the car. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
So that was an invention. And these are the things that I love hearing about. And that's what I don't think people are focused enough on.
Yes.
Now.
Because it's not interesting. It's not sensational.
Well, here's the thing is like I even like, there's this argument about coal, and it's being demonized in Australia as this really bad thing. It's a fossil fuel, we burn it, yada, yada, yada. It's increasing the CO2 in the earth. And they say that climate change, the human's impact on it, is because of our increase in CO2. Okay, cool. That's a fact. People claim that to be a fact, I should say. There are people disputing that, I should say. But the reality is even when you look at, this is the way I look at things now. So even if you said, okay, that's happening, it's not really going to change for a while, then what is the best way of doing it? So I'm like, you can get shit coal, which is like, they call it brown coal. It's actually shit coal. They call it brown coal, poo-poo coal. And then there's four.
Coal.
And then there's 3 or 4 levels to the best one. And that best one is the type of coal that Australia has. So, and the difference is that by burning Australia's coal versus the brown coal, the poo-poo coal, it's 37% more efficient.
Okay.
So when people say stuff like we should stop exporting our stuff to China because they're using coal, and our carbon footprint isn't just what we burn here in Australia, it's what we send away. But the reality is, if China, for example, stops buying Australian coal, that means they're just going to still consume at the same rate, but buy brown coal, so increase their emissions by 37%. So this is the logic that people do not understand. And I think things are so nuanced that people don't think along those steps. It's either boom or boom. It's like, well, let's figure out, different ways to do things.
Yes, I know, but that is sweeping generalize, and I'm making an assumption here, but I don't think that would be the normal way of handling things, because I think it's people don't care. That's the real problem. That's the real
100%.
problem. People don't want to seek out that information, so they're going to get those sound bites.
Yeah.
They just go, oh, I read that it said this, so that's the truth. And go, well,
I think it's
a very few, like, just saying, all the people I know, there are very few who had that inquisitive mind that you and I do. To go, well, tell me more about that. I want to understand that. And
it's a really good segue actually into like the whole idea of like how ideas propagate in people's minds and how they start having certain beliefs or whatnot. And when we grew up, we had a very different way of growing up to the kids of today. So we probably were the last generation to have the non-internet influenced upbringing.
Probably,
so we kind of just
I've never thought of it like that, but yes.
We kind of consumed mainstream TV with mainstream ads and mainstream information, mainstream news. It was just
highly Americanized.
It was a very collective view of the world, and you could really, manufacture narratives about certain things if you were the media, because you had that power of voice compared to. Whereas that's dissipated now, and that's why I believe that it's almost the freedom of thought, because
I love it.
People have it's almost like an era of freedom of thought, because people used to have to just take what they could find, and that's what they got.
That's right.
So and now you've got the internet, which has driven three things, I believe. Three things. It's one is wasting time, learning, or being creative.
Yeah. Well,
most people do probably too much of the wasting time, and
you can get. I think if you get into a rabbit sort of those bunny holes, but you're researching and you're finding out and you're learning things that you like, I think it's not time wasted. I think if you're reading comments on Facebook, maybe there's probably a better use of time. But sorry, like, I feel like every week I'm circling back to this homeschool thing, but I'm going somewhere with it. And honestly, because it ties in with this freedom of thought. And, some research I was doing this week was saying how the classroom environment, so what's happened is the learning landscape has changed, but the way that is delivered has not. So now, like I'm saying, like, we have got information at our fingertips. A child could seriously, because they're so tech savvy, they could just teach themselves, really. Yeah. They could. Yeah. But now we are moving into an era which is so exciting, where people have got this freedom of thought and are sharing and expanding ideas. And for me, it's a really exciting time. I love that creativity and thought is taking precedence over things like wealth or fame, or, you know what I mean? Like, I love that there's a space for it. That space is expanding. I think it's great. But I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that sort of era of thought, because that's where I feel like we're doing our kids a disservice, because we're spitting out this kind of regimented curriculum, but giving them no space to sort of go, well, hang on, what do you think about this? What, conversation, let's have a conversation about that. Let's talk about that. What's your idea? However wacky it might be, but what it is, it's training kids to question and to discuss and to listen to another idea. And
I'm going to bring up another extremely controversial topic.
Oh gosh.
If you can tell me to cut it after this if you want to cut it or not.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so the one that I want to talk about is, what's your thoughts currently on the want to raise gender neutral children if it wasn't their initial choice to be raised that way?
I don't like it. I'll put it straight out there. I don't like it. No, I don't. I think.
What is it? What is it that you? So, from your perspective, what do you believe is wrong with it?
I don't like the imposition. The imposition is what I have a problem with. If you've known me well enough and long enough to know that if I had a little girl who wanted to play with trucks and cars and play soccer and whatever, I would be that mum in the front row screaming the loudest, buying her all the trucks she wanted, whatever, because that's her interest. But if I'm imposing that upon her, I feel that's unfair.
Yeah.
You know,
I 100% agree.
I think that
the things that certain people
it's almost like you're trying to brainwash your kid. Well, if you're okay, I'm a girly girl. I'm a tomboy girly girl. I'm a weird girly girl because I'm a bit of a tomboy girly girl, right? But if someone just took away all my Barbies, I'd just be like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, I was playing with those and I like them and I enjoy them. Yeah, I want to have a tea party with my girlfriends. You know, like as if you're 5-year-old or whatever. Yes, I played with cars and whatever because I didn't have brothers and sisters. I only had cousins. My cousins were male and I played with those. But I wouldn't have gravitated to them naturally. I played with them because they were, right? So that's cool as well. But I think if, you know, I just worry that we're making something out of nothing. So can we not even refer to each other as him or her or anything like that anymore? Like, is that going to change as well?
Yeah, I believe there's a push to want to change the way that we speak. There's this, I think it's something happened in sort of Canada a few years back where there's a guy who is called Jordan Peterson. People tend to misframe him as someone as like this like far right person when he's just a mainstream centrist psychologist who's been practicing this stuff for many decades. So has clinical evidence and thoughts on basically why he has his opinion. So it's someone who comes from a place of authority. So when he has a thought on something, then he basically put it out there, and he initially became a person of interest when in Canada they were wanting to make it kind of like illegal to incorrectly use the wrong pronoun for someone. And he thought that ultimately, not just from a biological standpoint, but ultimately from a freedom of speech standpoint, it was the first time that a government was basically planning to put impositions on what people could and couldn't say.
Right. Yep.
So it
feels like that.
Yeah. So it's like you need to speak this way now, and if you don't, you're a bad person. I find it full on. Like I don't really know how to deal with it.
What's your thoughts on it?
I find it to be something that's really it's only sort of come about over like the last 5 to 6 years. It's like this whole woke movement, which is a combination of like a real I would classify it as extreme left thinking. You know, people talk about extreme right thinking, and I think ultimately some things are good and some things are bad. But I think there's just so much room for debate in regards to ultimately the way that people see the world. And if people see the world through a certain lens, they're going to have a certain feeling about certain topics. And right now, there are people who have this lens about how society's bad and we're trying to create justice for all these people. And it's like, life is actually pretty good right now. Ultimately, it's like I heard this theory. It was quite interesting, and it's swinging actually back to our original topic, but it's down the sort of through the loss of belief and religion. So like people have moved away from that. Ultimately, people always have this driving force to have like a goal or a belief or something driving a lot of their behaviors. Like this whole idea that people have this independent thought is, to an extent, at a macro level, they ultimately still want to be part of a tribe and a thought.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And it's been our over the last sort of 20 or 30 years, the move away from, a traditional religious belief set has moved to this weird secular atheism that has left people reeling without any real center of
direction grounding.
Yeah. So ultimately,
anchoring.
what this theory was saying is that people are looking for something to get behind. So things like all these social justice movements is a thing for them to be almost religious about in how they go about.
Wow, that is fascinating.
Yeah, I thought it was when I heard it too.
So the human condition wants to belong to something or be part of something or
greater than they are,
be directed by something. So they're substituting that because of the loss of, we'll just call it religion or spirituality, whatever word you want to use. So unwittingly, they're substituting it with social justice, but to the extreme.
Yes.
Wow. Who was this dude?
I saw it on on a podcast. I can't remember its name.
Well,
they're doing a tour at the moment.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well, look, I
think these guys. I found out about. Sorry to cut you off, but the final point is I do remember that these guys were specifically talking about their whole thing was that there's ultimately a social justice movement. Like they believe in good social justice, like things that we've accomplished over the last few years.
Amazing things.
Equal rights for women.
Yes.
The civil rights movement in America, all the good things that most Western civilized nations have done have gone through this evolution of creating equal opportunity for everyone. But now people are creating these
That's what
problems
it feels like. That's what it feels like.
An ultra niche. So now a minority is 0.2% of the population. It's like,
and this is what I was going to say. Like, I would love, and I'd be really open to, if someone wants to make a comment to educate us on why we need to be gender neutral. Like, I'm very open to sit here and listen to someone in a non-aggressive.
What you will hear.
What I want to understand is why it's.
Ultimately, these people have a belief that the current. This is ultimately where the top of this thought comes from, is that ultimately these people believe that the Western civilized world that we live in now was ultimately driven by a patriarchy, and it still does. So this male dominant world, so that the world is currently run that way. So that means things like men and women, they were taught to be different when they're actually the same thing. And it's like, hang on, what's going on here? This is all.
But we're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And this is the thing, is like there are people who ultimately believe that that men that was it gender is a construct. And I'm like, what?
What?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Wow, I'm out of the loop. 100%.
Yeah. Genitalia doesn't mean anything at all.
Well, it does mean a lot. especially if you're making babies. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But ultimately, I get to a stage now where I empathize with people who are in a situation where, man, it would suck to be a woman in a dude's body.
oh, that's a different discussion.
Right.
We are not talking about that.
Mm.
Can we just make that really clear right now, Jay?
Yeah.
That is not what we're discussing.
We're
We are
talking gender
not
neutral.
we are not talking about legitimate cases of people that are facing, these sorts of struggles. That's a different discussion. We're talking about the imposition.
Impose. Mm.
That's what we're talking. We want to be really clear about that. We're not anti. We're not anti transgender or that. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're trying to understand is why gender neutral.
That's why it's almost makes a mockery of those people.
It does, and gender neutral is a construct, if you want my opinion.
yeah, that's a good point, really.
The irony. Yeah. That's a construct, is it not?
The erosion of the word normal ultimately is what wants to disappear. Right.
Yeah, I'm all for that. And I am all for diversity.
But like
I'm
you
Mauritian
said,
for crying out loud. Like, that's as diverse as you get.
Yeah, but there are still norms, as in not normal.
And I think we've got to kind of get away from the idea that norms are the enemy.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. It's okay. The fact that I eat my...
You're a mixed race woman.
That's okay. We need some norms. Like, otherwise it's just going to be anarchy.
Well, it's weird. It's almost like there is this bizarre line of wanting to get rid of norms, but also extremely identify the lack of norms. Actually, that works together. Yeah, that's true. I just talked myself into a point. So there's...
Because that's what we do.
So you fight norms with the fact that there are multiple things, not just norms.
I think look.
But back to that original point, yes, the gender neutral raising of a child.
I'm not going to do it. I can quite happily say that on the show. I'm not going to do that. If my boy, which they have been watching Marvel Easter eggs or whatever they've been watching for the past 2 hours on YouTube, I'm not going to insist that they watch Barbie and the Rockstars. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I was watching this thing the other day. This will be our last topic before I have to shut you up for the day. But I was watching this comedian the other day. It was funny. It's this, I think, where was he from? It's going to be so bad. Some African nation. Can't remember. He was African, of the black variety. And he was
your people.
Doing this the 13% of my blood. Me and the Maasai tribe, we go way back. And he was saying this joke about how James Bond, it's silly that they want to do a black guy.
Why?
Because, when a black guy jumps into a room, everyone's always dubious anyway, so he can't be a spy.
Who said that? Oh, comedian.
The comedian, yeah. The black guy. So, he's playing the black guy.
That's so funny.
It was pretty funny. But it's pretty funny. Like, I think one of the...
Everyone's dubious.
Straight away. Who's that black guy over there?
What's this guy doing?
That looks like James Bond again, doesn't it? Yeah. So, which also goes to this new like phenomenon of what was it, that they need to have the appropriate people playing a certain role. So I think there was recently a movie, which is a slight segue, but it was a movie about a transgender man, a woman. Is that what a woman becoming a man is? A transgender man? Is that how you work it? It's a man who's transgendered.
Okay.
So it was a woman who became a man,
Mhm.
and they casted Scarlett Johansson to be the lead in it, and then there was outrage because she wasn't actually a transgendered man. I'm like, oh man, people just can't win. It's acting. I'm pretty sure they call it acting.
Oh, so so there was an expectation that a transgender should have been cast
Yes.
to play a transgender. Oh, okay. All right.
That was interesting. I was like, okay. If you think that, I'm pretty sure people go watch the movie because Scarlett Johansson's in it.
Oh, well, you know what? Like, I don't totally disagree with that argument, because there are movies where it's like, why has an American got an English accent for? Why wouldn't you just cast a British person?
Because it's acting.
Okay.
You're pretending to do something, to be someone.
Okay.
They basically are professional liars.
Yeah.
Their job is to.
They get paid millions.
That's what method acting is, right? So you're actually going into a state of being of a person. So you're ultimately being that person.
Right.
So you know, but it is cool. Like I like.
I do understand. I do understand the argument. I do, because I've felt that many times.
Well, speaking of where it was well casted, I watched a movie the other night called, what was it called? Peanut Butter Falcon. The Peanut Butter Falcon.
Okay.
And it's made, directed, written, one of the two, by the guys who did Little Miss Sunshine.
Ah.
Yes, and it's about this kid who has Down syndrome, and he's like, he actually has Down syndrome, the actor, and so it's like that, one of those sad situations where he's got no next of kin, no family, and they don't have support services for people like him, so they just put him in an old person's home. So he's like this young person living with old people. So it's horrible, right?
Is that on Netflix?
No, it's the movies.
Okay, all right, yeah, okay, continue. Sorry.
And so he's had multiple escape efforts, and then finally he gets out. Yeah. And it's basically his story of basically trying to find his favorite wrestler, the saltwater redneck. So his sidekick ends up becoming Shia LaBeouf, that actor.
Yeah.
And they go on this trail to try and find the wrestler. It's just really endearing. It's really nice. I really enjoyed the movie.
Oh, I'd love to watch that.
Yeah, it's just one of those little adventure movies. Yeah.
Cute. Cool. Yeah. Love to watch it.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's it? Peanut Butter Falcon.
Peanut Butter Falcon. Cute. Very cute.
Good. Have you watched anything lately?
Yeah, I'm always watching things, man. So I came back to our Paul Rudd show.
Should I watch it?
I think, do you know what? I think when I decide to commit to that, I'm just going to have to smash that out. I don't think it's something you can come in and out of.
One more season.
Yeah. Good Place. We're doing The Good Place.
Yeah, it kind of lost me, I think, after about.
I'm a bit lost.
I
hang in there because of the characters, because I think the characters are amazing. But I have to admit, I cannot keep up with the plot. I don't know what's going on.
No, are they real now? I don't have no.
Are they real? Are they in heaven? Are they in hell? Is that a demon? I don't know. But the characters are awesome. So I watch it mainly to watch their performances more than the plot because I'm a bit lost.
Yeah.
So that's The Good Place. What else? What are you guys watching at the moment?
Probably just atypical, just pottering through that. And
we haven't done season 2 yet. Season 3.
Yeah, 3. And and also slowly getting through Kaminsky Method as well.
Oh yeah, I smashed that out. Fantastic. Loved it.
It's a very good show.
Right. I might watch it again actually. I had finished the third season. Third season? Yeah.
We got this new guy at work who's working in my team, and he is from Netherlands, Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So on his first day, his name's Walter, like like Walter, but like the Dutch version of it.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I don't know how it got to ends up that we're just calling him Wally now.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, good old Wally.
Shout out, Wally. Good to have you here.
On that note, is there anything you want to add to the discussion tonight?
Have a great weekend. A great week. Wally, have a great week. And just, be a nice person.
If you've got any more tech issues, don't come to me. Just use a thing called Google, Sally. Just Google it.
Why? When I can text you and go, Jay.
The world will have answers for you, I promise you. And then if you don't have any answers, come to me. I'll sort you out.
Can I just pretend that I've addressed Google?
No, that would be lying to me.
Oh, damn it.
So you can. I'm telling you, that's the rule.
Okay.
If you can't find it on Google, then you come to me.
Yeah, but I did find it on Google, but I don't know how to use it. Shut up!
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be like at 75, Sal.
I'm an old person. You forget how old I am. I'm not cut out for this.
We met. I'll leave on this note, but we met my brother's girlfriend's family on the weekend.
Oh,
they
cool.
did a little gathering lunch, and we went there, and it was really lovely food. And my dad's at this stage where he's like, hey, he's just on another planet. And I think he's still living as if he was like 15 years ago, and he forgets how aged he is. And he used to actually look really good for his age, but now he's kind of dipped, he looks his age now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He looks his age now, and he's
Our parents are,
like, and he's looking at the guy. He's like, oh, I'm 75. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I'm 75.
The guy's going.
Guy's like, yeah. You look 75. What's this guy talking about?
Can you believe?
Can you believe it? I'm like, you're old, man. That was pretty funny. Can you believe it? All right. On that note.
All right, dude. Have a great week.
Good chat. That was very, very deep in thought.
Yeah, which is what we like, and that's what we aim for. And if there are comments, we encourage you to comment, subscribe.
Yeah, do all that stuff. Do all the techno. Click the little notification bell, the ding, and all of those 10 subscribers, you'll get a notification that we have a new episode. The best 45 minutes of your week.
Absolutely, no doubt.
All right. See you, man.
Dude. See ya. Take care. Bye.